Hi everyone, welcome to the Solar and Storage Market Series. I'm Kyle Pease, a senior engineer at RENVU Solar Distribution, here today with Mark Cornella and his team at Sol-Ark to hear about their latest products, such as their new 18K residential inverter, their commercial lineup, as well as best practices and tech tips. Before we dive in, and while we're waiting for more people to join, I'd like to give a little background on RENVU and some of the products and services we offer. RenVu is a US-based solar equipment distributor. We've been in the industry since 2012, and we currently have fulfillment facilities spanning the coasts with our main warehouse right in between in Texas. Our sales staff all have backgrounds within engineering or solar installation to provide you with the best sales support. And unlike some larger distribution models, our model is to be agile with market fluctuations so we can provide you with the most competitive pricing while also providing sales engineers knowledgeable in system design. This way we can help you save money on parts and also weigh in to catch potential pitfalls before closing in on an order. A few products to quickly spotlight here. We have unbeatable pricing on the Enphase line right now with bulk rates on the IQ8 MCs down to 115.86 each on the full pallet orders. We've also got a wide assortment of Runnergy modules ranging from 540 watts all the way up to the 600 watt range. Right now we have a deal on the B grade 590s with volume tiered pricing that goes down to 15.8 cents. We also have Tigo EI batteries with tiered pricing down to $131 per kilowatt hour. We offer the full lineup of Fortress Power and Renan products. Both of these brands offer 16 kilowatt hour monolithic modules that have been very popular recently due to their cost effectiveness. Of course, we carry the entire Sol-Ark portfolio, and we can beat any price you see out there. Right now, the 18Ks have dropped just under the 6K mark, and 15Ks are right around 4,500 due to an oversupply we have on the shelf. So get those while you can. That pricing's not going to last. If you're looking for T-gaskets to make a solar array watertight, Blicker has several options for different gap sizes. We're looking at a new lineup with, I have a few prototypes in front of me right here. There's a, a design that goes up to like 1 inch. I guess my webinar video won't let me show you very easily. But yeah, we have like a 1 inch design. It'll go from like just above ½ inch all the way up to 1 inch. Then we have a ½ inch design that will go like 3/8 to 3/4 inch. And then we have a 3/8 design that'll do about 5/16 all the way up to just about ½ an inch. So it kind of spans those full potential range of gap sizes for typical arrays. So keep a lookout for that. We'll be making some announcements when the new iteration is launched. And Credit Key and Build are a couple of financing partners that we work with. Credit Key is your standard line of credit up to 50K on your preliminary application based on your gross annual revenue, and then you can submit supplemental applications for larger amounts. If you have a commercial project contract in hand, then I highly recommend going over to Build. They've built their whole company around that gap in time between when you need to buy your materials and pay your teams and when you actually get paid for the project. So they're completely designed around financing based on a project contract rather than your gross annual revenue. This is really helpful for up and coming installers that might not have that history of revenue but have won a bid on a contract. So keep that in your back pocket if you ever need. And then we're going to go look at our bulk module price list. This is for large volume options. Shows our upcoming offerings as well on solar modules. We carry Runnergy, Hyperion, Xeonshine, Prism, Philadelphia, and a lot more. And we'll share a link in the chat to this page. I highly recommend you save it. We update it regularly so you can catch up on our latest deals for bulk orders there. And now I'm going to jump over to our solar design and quote tool. So this is our homepage, renvu.com, and you can access the tool either through the hyperlinked image or above on the top banner. Either of those bring you to the solar design and quote tool start page, where you can choose between a full system, or if you already have some of the components, you could deselect solar panels and racking, for instance. Next, on the panels page, you can choose between residential and commercial modules. This is ongoing, continuing to be updated as the module inventory continues to turn over. Right now, ZenShine 440 watts are a residential option, and Runnergy has a variety of commercial options that we've put up there as well. And you can see a dollar per watt metric below that gives you a sense of the relative cost. This isn't a tiered price, that's just like the base price, but it gives you an idea to compare. In this example, I'm gonna do the Runnergy 590 watt B grades. They've been really popular actually with Sol-Ark. In this example I'm going to give is very similar to some folks I've helped check out recently. So once you choose your panel, you get onto this racking page. You can choose between pitched roof, flat roof, carport, and ground mount. And under each option, there are sub options. For pitched roof, you select the roof type, such as comp shingle smash tile, flat tile, metal roof. There's also flat roof options with ballasted systems, tilt legs with roof attachments. Under the carport, it's that blicker structure, and you can increase the number of conjoined two-car structures with the shared center columns, and that's a custom fabrication there. And then under the ground mount option, we offer Iron Ridge and Power Field. In this example, I'm going to show a let's do a 4x10 array of those Runner G590s. And then depending on your site conditions, you want to set the wind speed, snow load, and the pipe size. And this will give you a ballpark. We'll get really close, but over on the Iron Ridge design tool, you'll get your exact quantities. So once you're pretty happy and you know the direction you want to go with your design, just write in and I can share you, or anyone in my team can share a link to the Iron Ridge design tool where it'll just refine if you need uh, maybe a few extra top caps or something, because the piers are a little bit complicated to calculate. Our tool just does our best estimate, and it'll give you a real easy cost comparison. But I did just want to point that out there. So yeah, that's the Iron Ridge SGA tool. And then as you're making your selections, you'll see these bill of materials pop up. You can click on any of these items if you're not sure what one of them is. You won't lose your place on the design. It'll just open up a new page where you can look at that item. You can download a data sheet and install a manual, read the description, and that way you'll get a better understanding of how the system all goes together and learn as you go. All right, so we have a 23.6 kilowatt array with 40 panels on an Iron Ridge ground mount SGA system. And now we'll look at adding inverters to it. You can choose between microinverters, optimizers, and string inverters for the base selection. Microinverters aren't going to make much sense on a 590 watt panel because typically these micros will do up approaching 400 watts in a max continuous power output, which means you're going to be clipping quite a bit. So and that's not a good DC to AC ratio. Oftentimes we'd want like 125% as our maximum ideal DC to AC ratio, which is the DC wattage of the panel on the nameplate to the max continuous output of the microinverter. But right now with what we have, we've got way above that. So I wouldn't recommend micros. It's a common question that comes up, so I'm pointing it out with folks maybe a little bit new to the microinverter versus the string inverter world. So something to watch for there. With these panels, I would point folks over to string inverters for this size array. I would assume you'd be doing a single phase or a split phase residential system. And you can add battery backup or you can go without. If you want just a real cost-effective grid tie solution, I point folks towards the Growatt min inverters. But if you're wanting to add batteries, then your best case you're going to be looking at is Sol-Ark. It gives you just so many options for cost-effective, competitive energy storage, and it's just very well vetted. So that Sol-Ark 18K would be your go-to option for this size of array. Of course, we also offer Fortress Power. And if you're looking at larger arrays and you need three-phase, we have the 208 and 480 volt options up there as well with that Sol-Ark 60K and Sol-Ark 30K. But we'll look at that Sol-Ark 18K on a 23.6 kilowatt array, and then you'll choose your batteries. We've organized it in a dollar per kilowatt hour uh, arrangement. So the lowest cost unit cost is going to come up first. So that Renin Excellent Plus is your go-to option in this case. These 16 kilowatt hour monolithic batteries have been really cost effective and popular. The stacks are really nice because you can get exactly how many batteries you want, but then as your needs change, you end up needing to add more modules. And so folks have generally been finding it's more cost effective just to overbuild it a bit, do it once and do it maybe with a little bit of an extra margin on those batteries. It gives them a little extra battery life. Uh, yeah, so that Renin Excellent Plus has been really popular. You can do 16, 32, 48 kilowatt hours, however much you need. And then on the bottom, below the battery selection, there's a rapid shutdown selection. You can add in optimizers or the RSD devices, but in this case, the ground mount, we're not going to need it. We can take those off. And then on the next page, you can add in spare panels. I always say as a rule of thumb, add one per pallet as a minimum, just so that if you have something that busts in install or shipping, or once it's up, a wayward frisbee whacks one of those panels, you're not searching a couple years later trying to find a drop-in solution because those form factors are always changing. The module specs are always changing. It can be really hard to find a replacement panel. We get folks coming in every week asking us. So in this case, I'd probably put a couple spare panels on there. Cables, labels, you can add as well as EV charger. Then you get to your final bill of materials page, and you can review all the quantities. You can check the data sheets and the install manuals. They're linked right there. And if you're happy with that and you know what you want, you can add it to your cart. You could refine the quantities in your cart and you can check out. Or if you're still kind of in the design phase, you're comparing cost options, you can save that quote. Just punch in your name and email and hit this button here and you will get a copy as a PDF and a quote number. You can write in with that quote number and get in touch with our sales staff and we can go over that bill of materials, any availability or configuration concerns we can weigh in as well. And we also proactively go over the quotes that are generated in our system. And if we see there's a relevant deal or some kind of cost savings opportunity, we'll reach out as well if it's applicable to the configuration that you have on your quote. And then once you have that quote PDF, you can also go over to this permits page. On the permits page, you can download a basic permit form, and then once you fill that out, send that off to Illumini along with the quote that we had sent you in the email, and you can get um, they'll do a permit plan set, they'll do a single line drawing, they'll do PE stamps, structural, electrical in all 50 states. They're very cost effective. And if you ever have any red lines that come back from your AHJ, they're really quick to do any revisions that might be needed as well. We've been working with them for about 5 years now, and they've been great to work with. So I highly recommend them. It's a cost effective drafting solution there. And with that all said, I think that kind of concludes my intro here. So if you have any questions about these products or about Sol-Ark while Mark is presenting, please feel free to ask in the Q&A section. We'll get to the questions at the end of the webinar during the Q&A session. You can also email our sales team at order@renvu.com for more information and pricing. This webinar is being recorded and we'll send you a link and a follow-up email. We also have recordings of previous webinars on our RENVU YouTube channel. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to Mark and the Sol-Ark team.
Thank you, Kyle. Really appreciate it. And thank you, RENVU, for having us here today. We know you're a very valuable distributor to us of our products, so really appreciate you putting this on for your customers. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Wrong slide already. Here we go. One second. Share. Good to go. And then I'll do a short introduction of myself. Are you able to see that all right? Good to go. All right, I'm Mark Cornella. I'm one of the regional sales managers here at Sol-Ark. I cover North Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Nebraska, and Kansas. We do have a regional sales manager in every territory here in the United States, North America, and South America. So if you do need any assistance with sales or anything on the pre-sales side, feel free to reach out to myself, or even Renvu can share our contact information for us, and we can get you help on the pre-sales process from our company. I'm actually joined by one of our pre-sales engineers, or our field application engineers today, Josh Clements. He's going to be part of those process for design review, any pre-install questions and best practices, and he'll help me out with the webinar about halfway through. Going to jump right into it. I'm going to introduce you to who we are. Well, we are Sol-Ark. We are a hybrid inverter manufacturer that started in 2013. So we're coming up on 15 years, hopefully, in the renewable space on both residential and commercial business. We're headquartered out of Allen, Texas. While we have changed many buildings as we've grown as a company, I joined about 5.5 years ago when we had 30 employees, and we're somewhere upwards of 300 employees now as we continue to grow as a company. So in our facility here, we actually have two facilities here in Allen, Texas, about 300,000 square feet total, where we house our sales team, our Sol-Ark support services, our executive offices, and then the other building is 185,000 square feet dedicated to our Texas-based assembly for our hybrid inverters, which we've been very excited about this year. It's definitely helped us out as we are a FEOC approved product manufacturer. I know that is a hot buzzword this year. It stands for Foreign Entity of Concern. We are a additive value for FEOC content, and we can get you a letter if needed for any of your future projects. And on that letter, not only is it an official letter from Sol-Ark, it will have domestic content in there for you as well. So again, please reach out to me and I can get you that directly delivered to yourself. So we are a veteran-owned business founded in 2013. Our first launch of the Sol-Ark 8K in 2018 took off very well to the market as we brought the first transformerless hybrid all-in-one solution to the market. That means those products you find back in the day when building a solar system, you'd be building, a separate maximum power point tracker on a wall. You'd have a separate charge controller. You'd have separate overcurrent protection, uh, maybe a different monitoring device that you'd be utilizing. You'd have about 7 or 8 separate objects on your wall while building a solar system. Now that we made a all-in-one product in 2018, you'll find a lot of other lookalikes in the market copying what we brought to the market originally. Um, so that all-in-one system now incorporates all those materials to make a hybrid storage system, which allows for grid tie operation and also microgrid forming operation with our products. So since then, we started rolling out larger and larger products. We then came out with the Sol-Ark 12K and then the Sol-Ark 15K in 2022. And then we have won multiple awards across years for our products and business. So this is what we create today. There's a couple products on here that we've actually sunset and we've brought it to its end of life cycle just because the market need wasn't there for us. So we didn't realize, or some of our customers just didn't want the size of products that we produced. So The products that we have stopped producing is the 5K2P and the Sol-Ark 8K2P. Those have been end of life. Now, the main residential products we create today is the Sol-Ark 12K2P, the 15 in terms of residential. And then in the commercial space, we have the Sol-Ark 30K, which is a 208 three-phase hybrid inverter. And then the Sol-Ark 60K, that's a 277 480 volt inverter. And then we also stepped into the battery business for the high voltage systems that we produce. We have a 40 kilowatt hour battery that's indoor rated, a 60 kilowatt hour battery, the L3 series that's indoor rated, and then we also have an outdoor rated 60 kilowatt hour battery. And we also have some battery partners we're going to talk about today, which also increase the value proposition for our commercial installs with many of our customers. Okay. So I really just want to dive in to what we make and what is the make of our hybrid inverters. Inside, you'll find everything from our DC PV connections, which is the MPPT or the maximum power point tracker. And may I mention that all of our hybrid inverters are made the same way, as in once you know one of our products, you'll know the entire family. So it should be an easy step into the commercial space if you'd like to use our products because it's going to feel very familiar to the residential space because you're going to know how our products operate, how to program them, and how to install them easily. Inside each hybrid inverter, it is going to have a different amount of MPPTs, depending on the product you choose. But looking into the Sol-Ark 18K, that's going to actually have 3 MPPTs that you can connect DC solar to. Any panel, any module will work. We also have a string sizing tool that you can utilize on our website that helps you figure out the max amperage and the max voltage of your panels stringed into each Sol-Ark MPPT appropriately, so you know that you're going to have a successful install with our products. Next would be our battery ports. On the low voltage side, they're a bit larger because they're going to be utilizing with low voltage a high amount of current. So you're going to have a much larger wiring going into those battery terminals. And on the commercial side, it's a high voltage battery. That means lower current, so it's going to be a little smaller. But they're going to be very similar connections on connecting batteries to our inverters. Besides the MPPTs, we also have parallel communication ports where you can stack our inverters together in parallel. As long as it's the same model, you will be able to increase your size, your AC output, your DC PV input by stacking multiple inverters together. So it really proving just how modular we are as a system. You'll be able to really design per meter for some sites or per location. So you don't oversize and you have something perfectly sized for the customer so you get the most value for them at the end of the day. Then we have our AC ports on the solar converter. We have a grid port, which will typically connect to a National Electric Code rated disconnect for the appropriate rating, and it'll go right to the meter. Then the load out port will connect to the top or bottom lugs to a 200 amp service panel for most of our residential products. If you're using our smaller products, it may go to a sub panel or critical load panel, depending on the rating of the pass-through of the inverter. So it's going to act as a transfer switch as well, being between the grid connection and the load connection. On the loss of grid, our inverters will go ahead and open up a relay at the grid connection, physically disconnecting from the grid and providing power to the load output to be microgrid forming with a battery attached to the unit. And that helps with savings on cost of materials for most applications because you don't have to add an ATS. You don't have to wait 10 seconds for the transfer time. Most of the time under light loads with our residential products, you'll be able to transfer over within 5 milliseconds, which is a UPS grade speed. With heavier loads, it will change up that transfer time. So be wary of that. Then we have the gen port on the AC side, which is a multi-function connection. named for generator connection. You can connect any generator as long as it matches the voltage of the inverter you're connecting to. For example, our residential units are 12240. As long as it's a 12240 generator, you will be able to connect it to the gen port. And what happens is this adds a tertiary source of power for off-grid resilience. For customers that don't build heavily on the battery storage side, you're able to still have a functioning system off-grid that's fully autonomous. And we typically don't recommend to build past 24 hours of backup, just because it's more cost effective at that point to actually add a generator. And you're also relying on those, non-prime weather days where you might have a thunderstorm or cloud coverage, and the generator can come on. Not only will it'll start automatically from our system as long as it has a two-wire start connection. That two-wire start connection will close a dry contact relay on our inverter. It will start up the gen, and then the generator will provide power to the loads first. And then we can rectify that AC energy back to the batteries on the DC side of the hybrid inverter to charge from the generator. So then you can charge your batteries up, continue to use it through the night. You have more control and more resiliency for any off-grid systems for your customers. That's one feature of the GenPort. We have two others. We then have AC coupling, and AC coupling is great to offer to any of your end customers who would like to retrofit an existing array on a home that maybe doesn't have an option of adding battery storage. Let's say it's a maybe off-brand microinverter that only produces a microinverter. If you'd like to add battery storage to it, you can add one of our residential Sol-Ark converters, tie in the AC coupling input into the gen port of the Sol-Ark, and program it to intake that and send a keep alive signal when off grid. So if you go off grid, we'll be able to continue to get that AC power to meet the load demand, and then pull power from that gen port from the AC coupled input to charge the battery as well. So it's making it very easy for the market to add a battery as a retrofit as net meter programs go away in the United States as well. It might just be easier to add the hybrid inverter plus battery. I've seen already some states, California had NEM 3.0, and then Arkansas got rid of their net metering program. And battery storage makes sense now for those customers that invested in solar system. So this is an easy way to add battery storage for them. And then lastly, besides generator interconnection, AC coupling, that gen port can also be used as a load output. We call that feature the smart load feature, where it can be programmed in the unit to provide power as an output for situational loads. It's based off a PV threshold and a battery state of charge threshold that once the battery is over a high percentage state of charge, and once PV is over the threshold of production, it will then form it as a load output on the gen port and provide power to your conditional load. A lot of our customers like to use this for maybe rooms that don't need air conditioning 24/7, but when there's excess power, they can go ahead and cool down the room, or you can do it to some sort of hot water tank with storage that you can heat up the water once you have excess PV and battery storage for the day. So it's a very fun system that you can utilize in multiple different ways. I mean, people call us the most versatile product on the market. Most of the time, I usually don't tell the customer no that we can't do a project. It's usually how are we going to do it? So now I'd like to introduce our Sol-Ark 18K. This is our newest residential product on the market. The Sol-Ark 18K came out in September of last year and instantly sold out into the end of the year. And now we're back in our mass production lines and assembly here in Allen, Texas. So really excited to have availability for our customers and through RENVU. For the 18K, you can use up to 28.8 kilowatts of solar connected to the MPPTs. And you can also have connected underneath that value too. That's perfectly fine. As long as it meets the customer's end needs and goals, it'll be in a good range, and also for charging the battery. Then max AC coupled inputs, 19.2 kilowatts. That's the feature I talked about on the gen port of the inverter. If you do want to add or retrofit that existing AC coupled array, that's your maximum there. The rated operating range for the MPPT is 150 to 425 volts, but when sizing and using the open circuit voltage, size in the range of 500 volts. The minimum startup voltage for the 18K is 125 volts. That means if you have 3 panels and the VOC is 37 volts, it will not start the MPPTs of the solar converter. You have to make sure you're over that threshold so you can start getting power from the PV. Maximum operating current is 36 amps in parallel. That's per MPPT. And then we do have the max IC at 54 amps. Three separate isolated MPPTs in the Sol-Ark 18K. That means they are isolated from each other. So let's say you don't have the best configuration on a roof, it's not all flat or one direction facing. You can put similar strings on the same MPPT and then maybe a different facing string on MPPT 2 or 3, which will help with your production instead of derating the singular MPPT. Maximum strings in each MPPT is up to 2. You can and may want to go up to 3, but then that starts to inline or add inline fuses, which may make things complicated and add to the bill of materials of the projects. We recommend staying within 2. Now, something really cool we did with the Sol-Ark 18K, we actually made it true to its name, or you will get 18 kilowatts of discharge from the battery. And there's no other product on the market that does this today, that getting a true 18 kilowatts from battery as an advertised as a nameplate rating of the inverter. So it is the strongest inverter on the market today with 18 kilowatts continuous discharge from battery or PV. That looks like 375 amps on the DC side at 48 volts. We also have a very high surge current. I don't think that any products can really compete with our off-grid surge current for those larger loads like an HVAC system or some sort of large pumps like a well pump off-grid. We have a 36 kilowatt 10-second surge for those high LRAs or lock rotor amperage requirements off-grid. It is a standard 120 240 volt connection for your split phase connections. It can operate in 208 3-phase, but typically once you're operating at that size, we recommend our commercial products like the Sol-Ark 30K. And then it is a stackable system up to 12 in parallel. You wouldn't believe it, but sometimes we see it. There's usually, I would say, chicken farms or agriculture applications that still run on split phase because it's either more cost efficient not to upgrade their service and they just have heavy electrical loads. So we end up having 10 solar converters in parallel providing power to these chicken farms and hog farms off grid or just on grid to offset their load usage. So you do see it from time to time. But most of the time, our most typical installer uses maybe 1, 2, or 3 units in parallel, depending on the size of the home and their electrical load. Now, into the batteries of our Sol-Ark inverters, we connect with any 48-volt battery on the market. But what we're showing here are 2 of our most cost-effective battery partners that RENVU advertised on their website, which is Renon and Discover. We're typically going to recommend these type of modules or these type of monolithic batteries to be paired in 2s. And that's just because of the discharge rate. I think most of the time these batteries are going to be around a 200 amp discharge on the DC side. And since we have 375 amps of DC capability of discharge on the residential inverter, we want to make sure that we're not the threshold or the battery's not the threshold, and you can meet our maximum output capacity. So pairing 2 of them will allow you to discharge at 18 kilowatts with the Renon or Discover batteries. It's going to make it really easy for sizing systems for your customer too, because most of the time providing 32 kilowatt hours of battery storage is more than enough for majority of applications. And providing an 18 kilowatt inverter at 18 kilowatts AC output is going to be more than enough for your average medium-sized home with a 200 amp service. again, I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but we do have a 200 amp passer from grid to load output. So it also helps on any of your materials by connecting directly to a 200 amp service panel instead of adding that sub panel with the Sol-Ark 12K. With the Sol-Ark 15 and 18K, you do have that 200 amp pass through. So even if you have a system like this and the PV is not sized to the nameplate, as long as you can charge the battery within your prime radiance hours and handle the load at the same time, you'll have a very efficient system then. And then our not only our inverters stackable, our battery partners are stackable too. They make it rather easy to stack between each other, as in providing other or other materials like DC bus bars to connect them easily together into our Sol-Ark 18K. So it should be very easy to add storage. And sometimes maybe your customer's goal is uh, a time of use offset, where they want to discharge during their prime, I guess, peak billing hours and on the grid. A lot of those customers will be in California where they have peak rates from 4 to 9 p.m., which skyrocket past 80 cents a kilowatt hour, which is ridiculous. So if you're able to discharge from a large amount of storage at that time, you're able to make a much more cost efficient system. You're really able to show the value of your system and increase that return on investment that the customer bought the system for. And they also have a layer of resiliency and extra battery to participate in other programs like virtual power plant programs. Maybe there's some sort of programs for energy efficiency upgrades and can get rebates on X amount of kilowatt hours per storage. Now, typically, what we're going to recommend not to oversize the battery past 24 hours of the battery's or the customer's load usage, because once you go past 24 hours, you start to get cost inefficient when adding battery, when it makes more sense just to add a third-party generator to the mix with our system, since we have capabilities to do it, the ease of integration, and you're going to have, again, a much more cost-efficient system for the customer and that tertiary source of power. Now, a lot of feedback that comes to Sol-Ark, a lot of our installers and customers just come to us and say, your system is too expensive. Your all-in-one hybrid inverter is too expensive. And we don't see it like that. Even though you may see a higher upfront cost of just the all-in-one system, it's a lot of the non-seen savings are because of how the system is built. Again, you don't need an ATS with the Sol-Ark 18K or 15K when you connect directly to a 200 amp service panel and take the customer off grid. So you're saving $2,000 on an automatic transfer switch. You're saving not only that, but you're saving on the sub panel that it takes to install. So the cost of the sub panel and the labor to move your main loads to a critical load panel from the electrician contracted to do the install. So really, that's some hidden cost savings there that's not even portrayed in this value chart against some of our competition. Um, what really makes our value is the AC output for the inverter and the battery storage cost of our battery partners, where we're going to be the most valuable cost per AC output and kilowatt hour installed. And most systems are already going to have, 15, 20 kilowatt hours already sized in for their designs. And the more battery storage you add, the more cost effective the system will get because we have such cost effective battery partners. Now, stepping a little bit onto what Sol-Ark offers in terms of resources, we do have ease of access from a lot of resources here at our company. So if you're looking to step into learning about our products, first of all, I highly recommend you go into our marketing resources and reading through our cut sheets, reading through our brochures, our installers manuals. We even provide CAD drawings of our products in case it's a complex design or integration that you're looking into. And we even provide case studies. Let's say you're having a hard time selling a product and maybe showing a case study of how it works in the real world and how it benefited the customer at the end of the day. It's great to utilize those in the sales process for our products. And then not only do we have the marketing resources online, we also have Sol-Ark University, where you can get our webinars on demand. You can learn about our products. You can learn how to install our products. You can get tips, best practices. We get market insights on where our products are going to be highlighted and where it's best installed. So highly recommend checking out the webinars on there. And then we also have a Sol-Ark installer map. If you are already an authorized installer, I'm sure you're more than familiar with it. And if you're not, it is a lead gen program and a tiered program that you can become one of our Sol-Ark verified installers. You can then go up into our installer core and become a approved partner, a silver, a gold, or a platinum partner with each different levels of benefits per tier. With the more installs you do, the more benefits you'll get from, for example, maybe access to our tier 2 support line immediately with verified phone numbers. We offer rebates to installs of our products, and then also other marketing advantages through that tiered program. I did mention earlier we do have a solar panel sizing tool on our website. It's very easy to use. Just input the specifications of solar panels, and you'll be able to size any product you choose with Sol-Ark, and you'll be able to know how to maximize your solar input, or if your current panel, how many, maybe what's the max amount you put in series or in parallel on each MPPT. And then we also have certifications on our website where you can find UL ratings from fire safety ratings if that's needed for any HJs or permit questions. Now going into our battery partners, this is really what makes Sol-Ark what it is today. Not only do we create a fantastic hybrid storage solution, having the ease of access to choose any 48-volt battery to connect to our products is fantastic. It makes it a very competitive market, and competitive markets drive costs down, which is a wonderful advantage for not only us as a company, but for any of our end users utilizing our products, because then they get to choose the bankability that they want from a company. They got to make sure that these companies are going to be here for the next 10 years. They're going to be here to support my products, and they're going to be the company to have the support team behind it. So Sol-Ark ourselves, we vet these customers out. We have our leading battery partners and suggestions right here, like Briggs & Stratton, MK Deca, Discover, HomeGrid, Pylon-Tech, Pipes, Renon, Voltium. These are all great battery partners, all lithium ferrophosphate or LFP batteries, which are the most cost efficient to develop today and very safe as well. So having that choice of any 48-volt battery solution really gives the end customer an advantage. They can even choose a form factor they like. Maybe they have a narrow space and they need to do the modular 100 amp hour battery, and maybe they can choose a different chemistry. Maybe LFP is not what they want. Maybe they want to test out a sodium battery or LTO or a flow battery. We've connected with them all. So they get a lot of flexibility there on the residential side. And then in comparison to some of our competition, like I said, we're a very modular product. We require less bill of materials than most others, where some of our competitors may require smart switches and MID or some sort of gateway in between, which adds to the hidden costs of our competitors. Well, we don't need any of those. We have our monitoring service built in. We have the transfer switch built in. We're a truly all-in-one system. Now, these other battery or these other inverter competitors are also locked into their only battery that they can provide. With only having one battery to offer in your all-in-one system, and you're not going to be price competitive on the battery side, where our batteries can get down, or battery partners can get down to $220 a kilowatt hour, which is extremely cost effective, versus some of our battery partners are locked into much higher prices. And the more you scale those products with the increase in consumer demand, the more the price of the system goes up, and that's why their value proposition goes lower. And what you're looking at really when going into our solar converters is we're showing you right here what a typical single line diagram would look like, where you have your grid connection that goes to a meter that goes to the grid port of the solar converter. You have the DC solar going directly to the MPPTs. It's a very simple system to design, to get an engineering plan set for, and to understand. You have the generator connecting to the gen port, the battery right to the DC battery terminals, and then the load output directly to the main panel that's being backed up in an off-grid scenario. Just highlighting the other features with our 18K. Again, we talked about the 200 amp pass-through that we have. Uh, we talked about the MPPTs, and you could do AC or DC coupling, or you could do a combination of both to add more solar output. Maybe the customer has a really good net meter plan and they just want to increase their solar output. Well, you can do that with our inverters without adding too much extra, without adding another one of our inverters. You can just add more AC output from the AC coupled input. And then we also have features like seasonal time of use, where we can discharge and have a different plan set per season. But with time of use, you're allowed to discharge from the battery down to any specified state of charge, down to any specified discharge output, up to the maximum continuous AC output of the inverter, and then at any given time of day. We also are a VPP ready product, as in we communicate with the standards IEEE 2030-5 and OpenADR 2.0b. We've already tested our first virtual power plant up in, I believe, in Massachusetts and Connecticut through Energy Hub and National Grid. We have that integrated already, and we're looking into other future virtual power plant programs to integrate into as well. Increasing the value proposition for the end customer, where they get a enrollment rebate for enrolling in those virtual power plant programs, and they get a large amount of higher amount of dollars per the sellback on the battery side. I'm seeing on average anywhere from $2 to $4, kind of in that range for sellback for these virtual power plant programs from utilities. And just wanting to highlight what our battery partners would look like. For example, this is Briggs & Stratton, which used to be Simplify. I mean, Briggs & Stratton is a trusted company with over 100 years of operation. They are very experienced in generators and can recommend one anytime. And they're a very durable product. And really what I like about this battery specifically, it can actually charge at much lower temperatures than other lithium iron phosphate batteries without heating. I'm not sure what the exact temperature range is, but I know it can go a little bit below freezing and still charge appropriately, while most other lithium iron phosphate batteries will require some sort of maybe a DIN rail heating mount inside the module, or maybe heating pads between the modules itself. So this is a little more cost efficient in terms of batteries in colder climates. So as long as it's within the appropriate operating range for those colder climates and the charging range, I think it'd be a great solution for those up north. Then we have the Pites battery. Pites has come out with a multitude of residential batteries today, and they've been a very strong partner to us in terms of cost effectiveness and how they make the battery. Now, they were known for making those classic 100 amp hour 5 kilowatt cells. They also have a 16 kilowatt hour monolithic battery compared to our other battery partners today. But really what I value with these guys is they're manufactured in Vietnam. They're easy to install, and they're very strong and knowledgeable support team that will communicate with the end customers. And then lastly, we have the Discover and Rheon battery, our most cost-efficient battery partners, coming in around $220 a kilowatt hour, which is a wild cost proposition I love. They're very durable. They're outdoor-ready cases, just like ours. Our case is a NEMA 3R outdoor-ready case. They have built-in heater and fire suppression. They're easy to wire, and they're a very quality BMS in the markets. So lastly, I just wanted to touch on the features before I hand it over to Josh here on the 18K and our new product. You can maximize your PV with this product, as in not only can you max out the 32 kilowatts of DC PV on the system, you can even add in additional AC coupled PV to max it at 40 kilowatts of output. We do have the highest surge rating off grid in order for those high HVAC loads, or maybe a 1.5 horsepower pump and above. as long as it's within the specifications for that local rotary amperage, and we're able to provide that 32 kilowatt surge for 10 seconds, it's going to be a fantastic solution for those large loads. We do have secure data as we are a US company. We host our software here in the US on Amazon Web Services, uh, and we continue to make it better for our customers. And then we are the only hybrid inverter out in the field able to put in 18 kilowatts from battery alone to the customer's load in a load backup scenario. Now I'm going to pass it over to Josh Clements, our field application engineer, to talk more on our commercial solution and finish up on the 18K here.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, I mean we've already kind of touched again on the specs, like Mark said. One of the things I want to highlight here actually is, some people will ask, well, what is the difference? You say usable PV power, right? What does that mean? Because our spec sheet clearly says 18K. So basically, all we're trying to highlight here is that while doing 18 kilowatts to your load, you can also do that additional difference, right, up to 28 kilowatts straight from the PV array to the battery, right? So that's kind of that bonus power that would ordinarily be unused. You could just still pump that power into the battery. So really big feature. We kind of highlighted that on our 12K when we first released that, and then we're bringing that feature back here on the 18K. Very useful. Go on the next slide. Mark, I think we can skip these two because they're going over the same thing. Really, again, we're just going to recap the differences here between the 15 and the 18K, right? So again, the 15K, which has been our flagship, which we built off previous technology, is 15K from PV, but really only 12K from battery. And 12K kilowatts is a conservative value. If you do amperage times voltage, you get closer to around 14 kilowatts continuous, but on the low end of the battery voltage, around 48 volts, you're still going to get that 12 kilowatt output. Again, contrast to the 18K, that is a true 18 kilowatt output, both from PV and battery. So again, highlighting the differences, and we're just building off of the same architecture. And you kind of see that. So if you put an 18K and a 15K right next to each other, you're really not going to be able to tell. 18K is just a couple pounds heavier and about an inch taller, right? So we've gotten really good at really maximizing the power footprint for our inverters. Again, kind of going down the differences, surge power, much larger surge capacity for our inverters, larger MPPT capacity as well. So you can parallel multiple strings together. Like we said, the 18K and 15K both have 3 MPPTs with 2 direct solar inputs per MPPT. With the 18K, it's a little bit better. You have a little bit more room to parallel if you needed a parallel 3 strings, or even with bifacial panels, right? You will have reduced clipping or potentially no clipping using bifacial panels with the 18K. Next thing, which we're still kind of, I don't have the exact value, unfortunately, but the 12-volt power supply that we have on board our system, specifically for the rapid shutdown. So the issues that we've had in the past, right, with the 1512K is that most RSD transmitters are, they pull more than 100 milliamps. So the solution has been pulling power off the load output of the inverter to be able to power that transmitter. Sometimes it's a pain to have to run AC power just to run the transmitter. So we've solved that issue with the 18K. So you do have the ability to pull DC power directly off of the inverter to power that transmitter. Last thing I'll highlight here is, again, the assembly. So all of our residential and commercial inverters are assembled here in Texas. So I'm actually based out of headquarters as well as Mark, and right down the road is our assembly. So the MCU that is made in the US. We actually uh, get that here locally as well. So that's a Texas made product. And then again, uh, parts may be coming overseas, but we are still assembling. We are assembling here in the US. Next slide, Mark. So we're going to touch into our commercial inverters and solutions. Again, we have our 30 and 60K, our indoor and outdoor batteries, as well as our battery partners on the high voltage side. So we'll move on and touch on those. So with our high voltage inverters or commercial inverters, which Mark already referenced to, we have a 30 kilowatt 208 volt, 120 208 volt three-phase inverter, and then a 60 kilowatt 277 480 volt inverter. With those, with our Sol-Ark batteries, we have two specific indoor models, and each one is designed to pair with a specific inverter, and that really comes down to the voltage range of the inverter and why we have the different sizes per, right? So we have a 40 kilowatt hour stack that pairs with the 30K, 60 kilowatt hour stack that pairs with the 60K inverter. These are your kind of standard rack mount batteries. They have built in, the 12-gram fire suppression packet in there, so that is a nice feature. These are fully compliant, CEC listed, UL 9540A, tested and certified, so it makes it easy when for your submittal packages to the AHJs. Next slide, Mark. This is our outdoor cabinet. So this is our HVR. It is a NEMA 3R enclosure. It's 60 kilowatt hours. And the modules in here are actually a little bit different, which is what allows us to pair both either a 30K or a 60K inverter on the cabinet. Mounts right on the side. Again, very small footprint. And one of the cool things about this cabinet is it has built-in HVAC. It's an air-cooled cabinet as well as additional layer of fire suppression. So not only do we have the fire suppression in the modules, we also have it for the cabinet as well. We have seismic drawings for these already, so they're already pre-engineered. Again, we're kind of lowering the barrier to entry when it comes to designing these systems into your projects. So this is one of the newest additions. So this is one of our battery partners, Discover, who also makes the low voltage Helios monolithic style battery. So this is a very cost-effective solution. It's 210 kilowatt hours, and it uses a larger capacity cells, which is what drives the cost down. Excuse me. This is specifically designed to work with our 60K 480 volt inverter. In the market research, we found that majority of our customers are using the 60K for those kinds of applications. So this is a really good pairing for that. If you do have any 208 volt systems, you could use a transformer to step down that voltage. The cabinet itself also has the built-in cooling. It's actually a liquid cooled system versus air cooled like the Sol-Ark HVR. It has a dehumidifier in it as well as the fire suppression. Something else that's really good about this battery, especially on the West Coast, it's NFPA compliance. That's kind of a new thing that's starting to be introduced over there. So this will help you get past those requirements. Kind of the same thing that I talked about before, the different features. It is UL 9540A certified. We already have a couple projects on this. It is stackable. We will talk about the stackability here in the next few slides. Again, you see how it says that NFPA 68 compliance. That's a big thing. That's something that we're seeing become more and more popular, especially with the the UL 9540A, a lot of AHJs, they look at that and don't necessarily like the definition, right? The kind of testing that it does. So then they kind of switch over to looking for NFPA. So this already kind of puts you ahead of the curve and makes you prepared for the questions that the AHJs are going to be asking. Again, this is highlighting our uh, really the cost effectiveness of the 210. All right, so the HVR and uses the 5 kilowatt kind of standard 5 kilowatt hour modules, server rack style modules, and it is a more expensive unit. There's it is what it is, right? Versus the 210 is closer to industry average because they're using those larger format uh, modules and larger format cells. So very cost effective. You can stack multiple again. We'll touch on that here in a second. So as far as applications are concerned, this is kind of a chart that highlights, largest, smallest as far as what we're seeing. So VPP DERMS is a big one. That's definitely a growing industry. There's a lot of interest there. Then we have our energy arbitrage slash time of use, right, where we're just simply trying to offset our load usage with battery. And then lastly, peak shaving, which I'd say VPP is an up and coming, but definitely a lot of potential. Energy arbitrage, while a big use case, I actually don't see it like super often. When I see projects come across my desk, the biggest thing I typically see is peak shaving, and that's where we're going to focus on again here in a couple slides. And the last two kind of applications is backup power, and then basically supplementing the grid infrastructure. Right, so backup power, very useful. Common applications would be anything with cold storage, doctor's office, dentist's office, things like that, pharmacies, right? And then grid infrastructure, so a lot of, you know, plug and play, drop and play, EV chargers, portable power, things like that. Yeah. Again, highlighting the applications. A brewery is actually a really big one. We had a big project in California using 10 of our 60K inverters and 20 of our HVR cabinets. So really big project there. They used it for backup and peak shaving. Again, mobile power, manufacturing is a big one. So, as Sol-Ark should, we actually have units here installed at our facility to provide backup power for our offices. And then we also have a solar array over at the manufacturing warehouse to help offset our load usage. Thanks, Mark. So yeah, so this is our peak shaving, right? So just basic idea of peak shaving is to offset the peak, but more so that we're offsetting the peak with battery, but the excess solar that we're producing that ordinarily would go out to utility, which nowadays you're not getting hardly any kind of payback for solar export is instead being utilized just to drive down the overall utility usage. So you get the benefit of the PV driving down your usage, plus the peak demand and usage of the battery to drive down the peaks, or use it for time of use during the evening hours for those companies or businesses that have extended opening hours. All right, next slide, Mark. So this is highlighting I'd say most common application that I see is the peak shaving. And it really doesn't typically have to be a large system, like that example right there with single battery inverter, usually, maybe 2 batteries per inverter. as a pretty common use case, and we are just trying to cut the peaks because that is the majority. I won't say majority, but a good portion, good chunk of the bill from businesses comes from just the peak. All right, next slide, Mark. So this is kind of highlighting again, putting it in a chart form, something visual, what I was talking about before, right? Where you have both solar and storage to be able to just offset your total load usage, but then you also have the batteries to be able to handle those peak loads. And in places like, again, West Coast, for example, and this is a growing trend across the US, where your peak demand charges are, you know, 6-7x what your typical um, kilowatt uh, price is, right? So we have demand charges that are $16 a kilowatt hour, which is ridiculous, and some of them more so. So this becomes a really cost-effective way to uh, lower the bill and then also provide a fast return on investment. All right, next slide, Mark. So this is kind of, again, the reverse, the economies of scale, right? So for most businesses, it's really just the peaks that kill them as far as their bill. And it's really easy to get rid of those peaks. The harder you dig, the deeper you dig when you're trying to offset more of their load usage, the harder it gets and more expensive it becomes. So again, typical use case, 1 and 2 inverters, 2 to 4 batteries, pretty small system, provides fast ROI, provides a lower overall energy bill, and can be done, again, with relative ease. The larger your system gets, the more expensive it gets, and we actually find a reverse trend in ROI, where you do have diminishing returns, right? So the strategy really here is to start small, and you can always add more. All right, slide. So when it comes to backup, which one of the good things about our system is, I've been talking about these things as isolated use cases, right? But we can do all three at the same time, multiple uh, use cases at the same time. We can do the building backup, provide a reserve power, but also do the peak shaving. All right, so we are a Swiss Army knife. You just pull out a tool, and there you go. It's you can apply it to the site for this application. So for home building backup, it's a very easy interconnection point. So those are, you point out those main breakers down out there at the bottom. So we're simply intercepting those feeds, feeding them into the inverter, the output of the inverter. Mark, if you go to the next slide, I think, is going to go to your loads. We are a stackable unit, so depending on your switch gear, right, 200, 400, 600 amp switch gear, you would just stack those amount of inverters to be able to pass through the entire building. That's something that's, traditionally would require really large inverters, complicated switch gear. You need SCL relay, you need ATS. We get rid of that. You just need multiple of our inverters, and that's really about it as far as bill of materials is concerned. Next slide. Yeah, so this is just a really good example of what we're looking, right? 600 amp service, 600 amp panel board, 3 inverters, 200 amps of pass through each, and you're good to go. System done, whole building backup. Yeah, you can keep going. So this is that photo that I was referring to earlier, where we're simply intercepting the essential backup portion of the panel comes from the Sol-Ark, from the load output. Now we're providing millisecond backup for those buildings, and we are acting as the ATS, or the disconnecting, the means of disconnecting from the utility. All right. So this is giving us a good overview of what our system looks like. Right. So we do have, you can see our inverter sits in the middle of all the different pieces of equipment, the different panels, the meter and solar, and it's a very simple, clean install. No need for additional components. One of the big things is non-export, right? So we are a PCS certified inverter. We have external CTs, which can allow us to monitor upstream loads to offset, especially for peak shaving, very typical use case. But then also non-exports, you're not wasting that power, sending that back out to the utility when you could be using it for other things, or putting power in the battery. And sometimes, sometimes you just want to say no to the utility. I'm not going to send you my power, so you don't have to, right? The last couple things we'll touch on is just Energy Toolbase. So Energy Toolbase, for those who are not familiar, is they're mainly a modeling platform. They also provide hardware for doing complicated or in-depth peak shaving, energy arbitrage analysis based on historical data. So that way they can dispatch the inverter, dispatch battery to be able to offset, provide faster ROIs. So that's a big part of their business, is their hardware. But really what their bread and butter is the modeling, right? So they take the interval data provided by the customer, green button data, and they're able to model it out, see, okay, this is roughly how much battery we need, this is how much solar we need, this is what's going to give you a good return on investment for your system. And very powerful tool. I would highly recommend this for anybody, any installer that is looking for some assistance on how to size a system. But more importantly, Energy Toolbase actually provides, they have their live support, so you can talk with somebody on the phone as you're sizing a system to make sure that you're really getting down to the nitty gritty and sizing a system accurately. On the next slide here, you'll just kind of see their breakdown, just highlighting what I was talking about earlier, giving you the financial analysis of the system, not only of the system, but what their current build rate is, how much money that they're going to be saving, and any adders, tax incentives, so forth, that could be applicable towards this project. So this is a really good selling tool to say, hey, customer, here is your interval data. This is what you're currently paying with this system. This is what we're going to be reducing it by, and by year 13 in this example, you've paid off your system. So really good tool. Sol-Ark's products are integrated in Energy Toolbase, so it makes it even easier. Just drop it down, choose it, and move on. That's where we're going to kind of end it. If we have any Q&A, this will where we can go ahead and do that.
Thanks, Josh. Kyle, is the questions open? Are they populating right now?
Yeah, it looks like we had a couple questions come into the Q&A section, and if anybody has any other questions they want to add, now is the time to do it. The first question we have is from John. For an upgrade from 15K to 18K, if using a J box for the bottom cutouts, I understand that the cutout locations for the 15K are different from the 18K. Do you provide cutout location templates for cutting the new holes for an 18K?
Yes, yeah, I believe that the answer is yes. I think with our new inverters that are being shipped out in the box, you will also receive a template for those for the cutouts and the knockouts for the 18K.
Perfect. Yeah, it looks like I think Renan has a junction box and Discover has their own.
Hmm.
Fortress has their own. So yeah, there's a lot of junction boxes out there. Next question up is from Robinson. Please, how do I get the link to your software for my sizing and other uses?
Ah, are you okay if I provide the link in the chat?
Yeah, yeah, you're welcome to. And if you also need those links, Robinson, you can write into uh, order@renvu.com. We can share them as well. But yeah, they're right on Sol-Ark's webpage. I think under the support section or the design tool section. Can't quite remember the website
Yeah,
sitemap.
I'll grab it here in 1 second for you too.
Cool. All right, and then Mark is asking, he's installing two 30Ks and four of the 40 kilowatt hour batteries. Do does he connect all of the batteries and inverters via a bus bar?
So for our high voltage inverters, you're going to have isolated DC buses per inverter. So you'll have two batteries on one 30K, two batteries on the other 30K if they're operating in parallel. And then those two batteries you have one or two options. It really doesn't matter, but I think the easiest is just going to go from the battery to the inverter. Since the inverter has two battery terminals, you can just connect the batteries directly into the inverter.
Got it. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions come up yet. But I do have one. How's availability looking for these products?
Good on most fronts. Since the inverters are assembled and manufactured here, we stay ahead of our forecasts. So lead time right now, I think we've increased it just a smidge than what we used to. We used to keep a 3 to 5 day lead time for most of our orders. Now we've increased it just due to increased demand and our production timelines, about 10 to 14 days from order. So
Okay.
whenever you tell Renvu, and if they don't have the stock from us already, 10 to 14 days later, they should have it shipped out to them. Also, Renvu should hold on to stock. So I think it'd be just your lead time for our 15K or 18K should be pretty low, correct?
Yep, yeah, it's those are doing great right now. But I guess maybe kind of jumping off of Mark's question, he's looking at those commercial batteries.
Uh,
And any considerations he might have if he doesn't have those in hand already, or if he's waiting to order. If
I
there's
I always recommend planning further out for commercial projects because timelines can be tricky. Um, so right now we are in stock of everything except the Sol-Ark 40K indoor rated battery. That is delayed till I believe the end of the month or early first or second week of April. So a little increased lead time there for that indoor battery. The other batteries right now are still in the same 10 to 14 day lead time, which is our uh, indoor rated 60 kilowatt hour battery and our L3 HVR or the outdoor rated case. And then from our partners at Discover, it's a bit of an increased lead time. And they're probably going to be closer to 1.5 to 2 months on that outdoor rated battery.
Yeah, I'm seeing some signals in the supply chain of just there are some slower lead times and increase in prices across a lot of the battery manufacturers. It's just the conditions we're in right now, unfortunately. So I've been trying to encourage anybody wanting to get a project lined up. Sooner's better. We can't make any promises down the road. The supply chain has been a little weird lately. So Mark asks also, he's wanting to connect two inverters to electrical panels. I'm not quite sure what his questions I'm assuming he's wanting some single line diagrams, which those you guys have great layouts in your install manual. And I think you can also write in Mark to Sol-Ark, and their support team is really responsive with system design and configuration, at least in my experience with some of my clients asking. They've been really pleased with the responses they've got over there.
Most definitely, yeah. Now, our support team is more for the post-support installation, as in they're going to help you out with commissioning the products, during the installation wiring questions, or any troubles that you may run into with our products. They'll help you out there. Again, 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. We do work on the weekends too with modified hours. But for any pre-sales questions or design questions, it'd be please send it to myself and Josh Clements or the appropriate sales manager over the region. For RENVU, I'm always happy to help out any of their customers, so feel free to reach out to me. Would you be okay if I put my email in the chat, Kyle?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, you can reach me right there. Just mark.cornell@sol-ark.com. I'll put sorry, Josh, I'm putting your email in the chat too.
That's good. That's fine.
All right, we got some more questions coming in here. We got Michael asking, do you have UL 3141 position and timeline?
Yeah, so UL 3141 is basically the update to the PCS kind of certifications under UL 1741. That is something that we are pursuing. I don't have a timeline necessarily on that, but it is something on our radar that we are actively pursuing.
Nice. And so I'm still wrapping my head around this as well, I think, as many of other folks are. There was a product that was popular for a little bit, which was a kind of a smart panel that would prevent the need to upgrade your main panel by limiting loads and output. Is that PCS, it sounds like, could potentially do the same function there, if you have an AHJ that approves that. Is that the correct understanding?
Yeah, so the PCS function is basically allows you to do non-export or limited export projects. So, you could oversize a system or make a system that's appropriately sized for the project without interfering with any utility infrastructure. So that's really the purpose of that. I've not had any issues with getting things, PCS approved. It really is dependent on the AHJ and where the project is located. And then UL 3141 is just the evolution of that PCS cert.
Nice. Yeah, nice to see that getting formalized and spreading out and becoming more standard. That's a huge value proposition because upgrading the main panel can be thousands of dollars as well, and those smart panels were not cheap as well. And if that can take the place of that need, that's a major savings through these inverters.
Oh yeah.
Alrighty, I'm not seeing any more questions pop up, so I think with that we can wrap it up. And thanks everyone for attending this webinar. We've recorded, and we'll send out a recording of that through email in the next couple of days. If you have any questions, you could reach out to order@renvu.com. And thanks, you guys, for your time.